I wonder, do you ever have any struggles with anxiety, insecurity, discouragement? Do you ever feel like something's working against you? Like you're just struggling and you can't seem to catch a lucky break? Well, today I'd like to share with you that there is one simple mindset shift. And when you make this one simple mindset shift, it can radically change that for you. It can radically change your life for the better. It can allow you to also achieve the things that you want in life with greater ease. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then I've got good news because that's what we're going to explore today. Not only am I going to share with you what this one mindset shift is, I'm actually going to guide you through some processes that will allow you to begin to make that shift today. So that's what we have in store. Now, first I want to mention that this meeting is a weekly meeting called Relax into Wholeness. And in these meetings, we explore together topics that are related to and support self-knowledge, because self-knowledge is really where it's at. Self-knowledge is what's most important. Now, of course, when you have greater self-knowledge, this will also support you and help you in manifesting more of what you want, including on the material plane. So yes, you can have more of the money, more health, better relationships, and all the rest of it. However, all of that, as nice as it might be, is really just a side effect of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is what is of primary importance, because you see, none of those things that you can get, none of those material things can ever really give you true fulfillment. And if you think about it for a moment, what you really want is true fulfillment, and that's only possible through self-knowledge. So here in these meetings, as I say, we talk about topics which connect to and support self-knowledge. And then, of course, a side effect, a benefit of that is that, yes, you can have more of what you want in your life. But I do encourage you to focus primarily on the self-knowledge. It's really an inner game. When you focus in the right way, when you keep your attention on the inner game instead of on the outer circumstances, then you can achieve much more easily. So that's what the real aim of all of this is about. Now, as I said, today I would like to share with you about this simple mindset shift that can support you in a much better life. And I am going to share exactly what that mindset shift is with you. And as I said, I'm going to coach you through some processes that will allow you to begin to tap into that starting today. However, before we get to that, first we have to explore what is the problem and why do you really need this mindset shift? Now, I know because I read the comments on YouTube that some people grow very impatient and they say, come on, Joey, just get on with it. Just tell us the answer already. Why are you wasting our time? And unfortunately, that attitude is the real problem. Because now it's not really your fault. It's just what the world has taught us. The world has taught us if you can just collect up the right answers, and that's somehow going to add up to what you really want. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Perhaps you've noticed if you really pay attention, because you've been playing that game of collecting up the right answers. And by now, hopefully you have a lot of the right answers. But just tell the truth, they haven't done you a whole lot of good, because the answers in and of themselves aren't really what does it. It's when you connect the dots within yourself so that you can actually properly understand the answer. That's when the change happens. So it's deception to think that the answer somehow has that magical power to change your life. It doesn't. It's when you make the changes within yourself so that you can understand and properly make use of that answer, that's when the changes take place. So patience is a virtue because it will support you in being able to make those changes within yourself so that you can understand the answer and make use of it when it's supplied to you. But if you get the answer now, you won't know how to make use of it. I promise. Now, I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, but again, I really promise you, if you're willing to if you're willing to do the work necessary to cultivate the patience, to be here even with those thoughts that might be in your mind of Joey's wrong, he's an idiot, and I know everything already, then you can actually have the benefits that all this will provide and offer to you in your life. But if instead you just succumb to the same old patterns of believing your thoughts, then nothing's going to change because you've been already doing that. So I often make this invitation, I'll make it right now, which is just to tell the truth and notice, how has what you've been doing up to now been working for you? If you're satisfied with those results, keep doing it. But if you're not, then now is the time for change. You have to make that change within you. And when you're willing to make the change within you, then you will be very happy with that. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Now, as I said, I want to take a moment to explore what is the problem, because if you don't properly understand the problem that you're dealing with, then, like I said, you can't understand the answer because it won't make any sense to you. So, have you ever noticed that you feel anxious, insecure, kind of all the time? In the background, if not in the foreground, there's this insecurity. There's a sense of lack. Something's wrong, something's missing. And then you spend your life trying to figure out what that is. What is it that's missing? Is it something that's wrong with me? Is it something that's wrong with the world? Is it something that was wrong with my parents? Was it something that was wrong with my schooling? Was it something that was wrong with the food that I ate as a child? What is it? You just want you to kind of throw up your hands. What is it? What's the answer? What's wrong? Because you assume there is something wrong. It seems like there has to be something wrong because you feel these feelings. And for most people, their whole lives become consumed by trying to figure out what's wrong so that they can solve what's wrong. Now, that would be very good, except there's nothing actually wrong. Now, I know that's, see, I can anticipate already where people's minds go. Somebody's going to say, what do you mean nothing's wrong, Joey? You mean war isn't wrong? You mean murder isn't wrong? You mean, now hold on a second. What I'm talking about is, in your experience, there's nothing wrong in your experience. But still, some people are going to say, what do you mean nothing's wrong in my experience? I have I have a diagnosis. I know what's wrong. It's been told to me by experts. Whatever it is, it's got a name. Maybe it's got a dozen names. I know what it is. I mean, everybody has dozens of diagnoses these days because the internet provides them, right? I mean, the internet manufactures them left and right. If you don't have a diagnosis yet, just go watch some videos on YouTube. You'll get a dozen today. So we all have ideas of what the problem is because we've given names to it. Others have given names to it. It's whatever it is. It's childhood trauma, it's ADHD, it's some, medical sounding thing in Latin. It's whatever it is. And if that was giving you the answers that you were looking for, if it was actually helping you, then you wouldn't be here now. So what I'm inviting is a different possibility, which is to actually take a step back and examine the assumptions that you're making. And here's what I propose. I propose that when you really examine what you're going to discover, and you can look right now, you can actually look right now and discover this, that what you have is feeling and possibly some thoughts about it. And because they go together so often, because there's the feeling and then the thoughts, the feeling and the thoughts, the feeling and the thoughts. And so you think, well, they go together. They mean the same thing. They're like, it's like water is wet, right? So you said, well, if there's wetness, then there must be water. I mean, you never have wetness without water. You never have water without wetness. So in we assume that it's the same kind of thing. We assume that because the thoughts and the sensations co-arise, that they are one and the same thing, that they go together inseparably, always, forever and ever. And the sensations are just sensations. The thoughts give meaning to the sensations. The thoughts say there's something wrong. I don't like this. This is painful. This is bad. This is horrible. It means something bad. But notice, can you really prove that it's true? Can you really prove that these sensations mean anything at all? Now, this requires a lot of self-honesty. Frankly, more self-honesty than the majority of people are willing to muster. But you are not the majority, right? You are a minority. I believe that you, by virtue of the fact that you are here, you are the sort of person who has the willingness and the capacity for the level of self-honesty that's necessary. So just notice there's sensation, there are thoughts. Apart from the fact that they co-arise, is there anything else that connects them? And the mere fact that they co-arise does not prove that they are one and the same. It's actually conditioned. It's just like Pavlov and his dogs. Hopefully you know the reference. So Pavlov was a researcher, famously conducted research with dogs where he would sound a tone at the same time as he would feed the dogs. And he repeated this so that every time he would feed the dogs, he would sound a tone. And eventually, all he needed to do was sound the tone. No food, just sound the tone, and the dogs would salivate because they were anticipating food. Because the two had gone together enough, the tone and the food, the dogs now had paired them, had associated them, so that the tone meant food. Even though no food was provided, the tone for the dogs signaled food so they would begin to salivate. This is exactly the same thing that you are experiencing. There is sensation. There is a thought. Other than the fact that they co-arise, they have no connection. But the way that our nervous systems work is that when things co-arise often enough, our nervous system pairs them together. It's an efficiency strategy, I guess. It's part of learning, really, is what it is. But it can be problematic when we fail to recognize the actual nature of what it is, especially if we're experiencing pain, fear, anxiety, worry, distress, and we're seeking to solve that problem. And the more we seek to solve the problem, the more we reinforce that it is a problem. This is really important to understand. If there is no problem, like, think about it for a moment. If there is no problem, is there any need for you to solve a problem? It's obvious, right? If there's no problem, there's no need to solve a problem. If you're trying to solve a problem, then what does that feed back to your nervous system? Obviously, it feeds back that there is a problem. You wouldn't be trying to solve a problem unless there was a problem. At least it would seem so. So your nervous system gets feedback saying, I guess there really is a problem, which reinforces the conditioning. Now your nervous system says, oh, wow, I was right all along. There really is a problem. So it becomes, the conditioning becomes stronger. So you try to solve the problem more, which reinforces that there is, in fact, a problem. So the conditioning becomes even stronger, which causes you then to try even harder to solve the problem. So round and round it goes. It's a vicious cycle. This is what you have been dealing with. Whatever it was, at some point in your life, somehow you had this, you got a sense that there was a problem and you were unable to resolve that. And so it's been going round and round and round and round and round and round and round. Trying to solve that problem reinforces the problem. I'm repeating myself, but it's such an important point, one that many people don't properly understand. That's why I'm repeating it, because it's so important to understand. Now, just me telling you this, I mean, it's possible for some people. You might hear this, you might take a look, you might realize the truth of it, and that might instantaneously produce a shift for you, where you might instantaneously, really, truly, through and through, see the truth of it. And you can realize, wow, there is no problem. Many of you still have doubts, and that's normal. So don't worry if you still have doubts. What I'm going to share with you is what's going to help. But first, I just want to make sure that we have a basis for understanding. Now, just before I tell you what this mindset shift is that can help to resolve this, I also want to just make sure that it's clear to you, so to realize how significantly this conditioning has been impacting your life. So just take a moment and consider that. How much of your life has been consumed by trying to solve this problem, the sense that there's something wrong, that there's something missing, there's some kind of lack. Do you notice that it's been going on every day of your life for as long as you can remember? And that it has, think about the financial costs of this. How much money have you thrown at trying to solve this problem? And I'm not even, I mean, of course, we're talking about the various forms of education, from professional development to therapy to uh, all the various ways that you've tried to compensate or solve this problem. But also think about all of the things that you've done trying to distract yourself from the problem. How much money and time have you thrown at that? And you can say a lot, because that would be the truth. So much of your life has been consumed by this, and it has a very serious impact on your financial bottom line. There's also, consider then the impact on your relationships. I mean, do you notice in your relationships? I'm not just talking about your romantic relationships, but your relationships with your parents, your relationships with your spouse, your relationships with your children, your relationships with your coworkers, your relationships with your friends, and everybody else, even acquaintances, even strangers. Do you notice the impact where you're you're hardly ever fully present because you're either trying to figure out how you're going to get approval from others, or you're trying to figure out how much of a threat are these other people. You notice how quick you are to fall into those habits of either fear or anger. You know, if something you've got your plans for how things have to be in the relationships, how people have to behave, how they have to act toward you especially. And when they don't, do you notice what that triggers in you and how that can set you off? And then think about what impact all of that has on your health. I mean, the stress of this constant stress that's draining your energy, because you can never fully just be at ease. It's just constant concern. Something's missing, something's wrong. I've got to fix something. I've got to protect myself. I've got to defend myself. I've got to acquire something so that I can be okay. That produces a lot of stress in the body. I mean, for some people, it impacts their sleep, so they have poor quality sleep. For some people, it impacts their digestion. For some people, they're just uptight. You can just feel it. So the consequences of allowing for this pattern, this conditioning to continue unchecked is more than you can afford, because it just robs you of life. So I hope that that's clear. And the reason as I said, if you don't understand all that, then the answer to all this doesn't make any sense. Plus, you wouldn't be motivated to do it. But if you understand what is the actual nature of this problem, and you understand the consequences of allowing this problem to continue, hopefully then you will then be motivated and you will have enough understanding to be able to work with this answer. So I'm going to share this answer with you now. Now, you may already have some opinions about what I'm going to say. And for your own sake, I invite you to just notice whatever opinions and judgments you have, whether you think, oh, I already know that, or you think, oh, that couldn't possibly be true, or whatever it is that you think. I invite you to notice that, and then also just set that to the side for the time being so that you can actually investigate this in a fresh way and receive the benefits of it. Because if you come into this already thinking that you know, whatever it is you think you know, for better or for worse, if you agree or disagree, either way, you limit what's possible for yourself. So just acknowledge whatever judgments might be there and then put them to the side and be willing to investigate this sincerely in a fresh way, because I promise you that when you do, you will receive many more benefits. So here is the mindset shift. I'm going to express it as a phrase. Everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. Everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. Just try it on. Everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. You see, I think there are really two fundamental ways of understanding life. One of those ways is that life is hostile. And the other way is that everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. Now, can I prove to you that that is true? No, I'm not even going to try. I'm inviting you to discover for yourself the benefits of working with that. Because it's not just about me trying to convince you of how that's true. It's actually the process that you undergo when you start to work with that. That is what produces the changes. So the way that most of us have been conditioned is to perceive, at least to some degree, that we exist in a hostile universe. Something bad is going to happen to me. Somebody is going to hurt me. And just notice, if you're think about this, imagine that you're walking down the street and you see a group of people and they all seem to be looking at you and they're all giggling. What comes into your mind? I'm willing to bet that for most of you, what comes to mind is that they're laughing at you and that it means there's something wrong. It's a problem. Because why? Because it's a hostile universe. Because you're not safe. You're not safe in a hostile universe. And this orientation of I live in a hostile universe colors everything. So this shift of everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good it's really radical because it radical in the sense that it goes to the root. It goes right to this very fundamental binary of it's either hostile or it's good. And you can't know either way. You can't. You can't prove that it's true either way. I'll suggest you can't prove it because it's neither. But it turns out from practice, from experience, that to make the shift to everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good is a much better way of living. It gives much better results. And it allows for more, it allows more space for more self self-reflection, for more self-awareness, for self-knowledge. Because think about this. When you are, if you live in a hostile universe where something bad is going to happen to you, something bad is likely to, likely something bad is happening right now. Bad things you can't even see. You don't even know what they are, but they must be happening. Bad things. And if they're not happening now, then boy, they're going to happen tomorrow. If you live in that kind of universe, there's no time and no space for you to be because you're constantly doing. There's constant movement and activity trying to figure it out, trying to solve the problem, trying to protect yourself, trying to anticipate. And it just gets you more and more wound up. But when you know and accept and work with everything that happens in your life is for your greatest good, then life becomes something different. It's curious all of a sudden. I mean, gee, how is it possible that this is for my greatest good? How is that possible? Because I was so sure that it was bad. I was so sure. I mean, everybody else told me it was bad. I was so sure. I was so sure when people laugh at me, that's bad. When I don't have as much money as I would like to have, that's bad. When somebody does not want to have the kind of relationship with me that I want to have with them, that's bad. It's what I was taught. So then when I make this shift, then I don't have to rush to protect myself, to defend myself, to anticipate badness. I have the time and space. I can take a step back. I can be curious. I can say, wow, how how could this possibly be for my greatest good? And maybe at first you don't know. Why? Because just like Pavlov's dogs, they couldn't help themselves. Every time the tone would sound, they would salivate. I mean, if there was a dog among them who had you know, had that presence of mind, maybe they might have thought, gee, why? This is so strange that I'm salivating just because there's a tone sounding. There's no food. They could have that awareness, maybe, but there they were salivating nonetheless. Couldn't help it. That's how their nervous systems were wired up. But that can change. There's there's a term for this is that's can extinction of conditioning. I don't know what it's called, but it's the, if the tone is sounded often enough without food, eventually the nervous system gives it up. The nervous system is like, okay, I guess there's no connection. And so then the dog is not compelled to salivate any longer just because there's a tone. So the same for you in your life. Just because things are appearing in a particular way, you're no longer compelled to the old way of stress, anxiety, fear, and all the rest of it. Because you no longer are operating from the assumption that you live in a hostile universe. Instead, you say, well, I'm not sure exactly how this is for my greatest good, but it must be. Must be. Has to be. Because that's how life works. You see, everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. So when, as I said, and I really truly mean it, this has profound implications far-reaching implications, positive implications in your life when you work with it. So just like Pavlov's dogs, in order for you to have the outcome that you want here, you have to be willing to work with it long enough that that shift happens in your nervous system. If you give up prematurely, then you just go back into the old habit and start reinforcing the old habit again. Just like, if Pavlov's dogs, if let's say it takes 10 times, I don't know how many times it takes, but let's say it takes 10 times of sounding the tone with no food before the dog finally gets it. Well, if on the 10th time they pair the tone with the food, guess what? Now it just goes back to reinforcing the old thing. So they got to start over again. In fact, I don't even know exactly how that works. It might even be worse, because I do know that there's something about the unpredictability that can make something very difficult to let go of. So, and just as an aside, there are forces in this world that know that are using that against you. So be aware. The more aware you are, the more autonomy you have. Instead of, you can't be used so easily by others, because it gives, notice again, when you don't have a problem, you're already free. But when you have a problem, or when you perceive that you have a problem, you're very easy to manipulate, because you say, oh, I hurt so much. I hurt so much. I'm afraid I don't want to hurt anymore. I need help. I need anything that I can get that will get me out of this pain. I can't stand the thought of any more of this pain. And somebody comes along and they promise you, take this pill. And you're very happy for the pill. So when you work with this, you free yourself. You have no idea what's possible. I promise you, though, it's all good. This is incredibly empowering. This can change every area of your life. This can, if you think about it, like I said, when you investigated the implications of continuing to do things the old way, you can see how that's been harming you in so many areas of your life, including your finances, including your health, including relationships, including just your peace of mind. Just like, how many people have those days, those moments, those whatever they are, however long they are, where you question whether you actually want to be alive, because sometimes it seems so impossibly painful and difficult and pointless. And I know it's true, because everybody has that. Everybody does. That's only because of this old conditioning. The old conditioning blinds you to the reality that is right here, plain as day. But you can't see it because you're preoccupied by trying to solve the problem. But it's not a problem that you can solve, because it doesn't exist. You can't solve the problem of lack when there is no lack. You are already whole and complete. Not 99.999%, 100%, absolutely 100% complete, whole, perfect, nothing missing, nothing defective. It's just the conditioning that leads you to insist there must be something wrong, and then you find all of the things that you insist are evidence of what's wrong. See, I'm not telling you that all of the things that you've identified as proof that something's wrong might not be true as far as it goes. I mean, if you say, well, you know, I I have, I only have X number of dollars. It's not enough. I'm not telling you that necessarily you have more than that. What I am saying is that what you have accepted as proof that there is a problem is not proof of a problem. None of it proves a problem. And I know that might be hard to believe because of the conditioning. But keep in mind, Pavlov's dogs couldn't help but salivate when the tone was sounded. The same as you can't help at present thinking that there is a problem. It's the conditioning. It doesn't mean that it's true. This is what I'm sharing with you is has so much potential. I couldn't possibly overstate it. When you really honestly get this, when this clicks for you, I I I am in no way overstating when I say this will radically, positively transform your life in every area. I'm not saying overnight the millions will come in and you'll have the six-pack abs and people, your ex-lovers are going to come back and tell you how much they need you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you'll realize that you are already perfect. You don't need anything. You might still have certain preferences and wants. That's not a problem. It's never, think about it. Maybe when you were a child, did you ever have like an activity book with mazes or crossword puzzles or things like that? Some kind of or coloring book or something like that. Was that a problem? I hope not. I hope it wasn't a problem. But you see, that's what your life now is like. It's not really that different. You've just got some puzzles. That's it. You've got puzzles. You want to you want to do those puzzles? Do the puzzles. You do the maze, you get to the end, you get a pot of gold. Fabulous. It's not a problem. And you say, "Oh, I'm lost in the maze. It's so terrible. It's the end of the world." It only seems that way because you believe you live in a hostile universe. And I'm not telling you that you consciously believe that. I'm saying that that is the conditioning because that's the way of the world. That's how the whole thing works. Think about it. I mean, that's why I hope that none of you ever watch the news, but if you do, or if you did, if you've ever seen it and you can remember what it was like, then you know that they're just selling how dangerous the world is. And it seems you get a cheap thrill out of watching it because it just reinforces the same thing. And that's the way of the world. Everybody in the world is talking about all of how all the problems. What's wrong with everything and everyone? And all these years, I mean, read the Bible. Think about it. If you've read the Bible, you know thousands of years ago, it was the same story. The same story, people killing one another. This is what the people have been doing for so long. And you're a creative person, right? You don't need to continue to succumb to the old programs that have been running humanity for thousands of years. Because you can see perfectly well what the results are. After all these years, people are still killing one another. So if you want change, you can have it. That's the good news. Now, I promise you that I would tell you what the mindset shift is, which I've done. So that is to the shift is to this, what this statement points to. Whether you use these exact words doesn't matter, but what it points to. Everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. Now I also promised you that I was going to guide you through some processes that will help you to begin to make that shift now. And I'm going to make good on that promise. So I'm going to guide you through at least two things. The first one, I'm not really going to guide you through so much as I'm going to give you an outline of it. And it's something that I encourage you to work with. Okay. Second thing is I'm going to actually guide you through a process. So the first thing is this. I suggest that you write this phrase down, the one that I've given to you. Everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good. If you want to modify it, you're free to do that, of course. But I think it's a really good phrase. So you might want to just consider working with it. Because if you modify it, you might modify it in a way that possibly doesn't have the same effect. So if possible, work with the same phrase because it might be uncomfortable for you. It might trigger some things in you. That's okay. That's part of the process. Because what this, so write it down and then read it every day, at least once a day. How long will that take you? A minute, maybe? I mean, if you really like read it and consider it, maybe a minute. So it's not a lot of time. How many minutes are there in a day? I'm not going to do the math on that, but there's a lot of minutes in a day. So 1 minute, I think you could do it, right? Is there anybody here who could not commit 1 minute a day to this? Something that can change your life, 1 minute. Okay. So at least once a day, read it. And as you read it, just consider that. Just notice what comes up. Do you have objections to that? If you do, great. It's not a problem because that's going to show you the old conditioning. So when you notice if you have anything that comes up that opposes that, if you're arguing, you say, it can't be true, there's exceptions, this thing is not good, that thing is not good, then just be willing to consider that. Like take a step back and just be willing to consider it in the light of the possibility that everything that happens in your life is for your greatest good. For bonus points, anytime you catch yourself in the day complaining to others or to yourself out loud or silently, and for some people, that's going to be a lot of the time. But anytime you catch yourself, just pause and consider for a moment the possibility that everything that happens in your life is for your greatest good. Just consider it. Just be willing to take that step back. I know, I get it. Your mind is going to, at first, it's going to argue, it's going to say it can't possibly be true. There's no way. But it's your whole way of perceiving has been organized around the conditioning that you live in a hostile universe. So if you're not willing to work with this sincerely, if you're just going to shut it down every time you have an objection, you're not going to get the change. if you want the change, which I promise you is worth it, then what's necessary is that you consider it sincerely. Don't shut it down. Just be open to it. So this, importantly, I am not encouraging you to try and just use blunt force to make this a new belief. This is not about mechanical repetition. This is about you actually noticing, and whenever it is that you're viewing life through the lens of a hostile universe, and just pausing and inviting yourself to notice, what if actually everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good? What if that's true? How could I see this differently if I was seeing the truth that everything that happens in my life was for my greatest good? So you're just inviting yourself to start to make that shift bit by bit by bit. Okay. So I gave you one simple thing that you can do. If you just do that once a day, sincerely, that will begin to set into motion these changes. 4 bonus points. Not absolutely required, because I know it's a lot to ask, but if you really want the change, this is the way to greatly accelerate the results. As I said, catch yourself anytime that you're complaining, inwardly or outwardly. And just pause, take a step back, and invite yourself, what if everything that was happening in my life was for my greatest good? How could I see this differently if that was true? Now I'm gonna walk you through a process that can begin to make a very substantial shift for you right now. You see, everything we organize our experiences. We give them meaning. We we place them in various locations in our inner landscape, and that is how we live our lives. So what's happened is that you have all kinds of things from the past that you're holding on to in your inner landscape, in your mind, in your being, that you have assigned meaning to, and you've assigned a meaning of bad. You've assigned a meaning of bad to these things. Okay, so I want you to, so that I want you to bring to mind things from your life that you have determined are bad or were bad. And this is what I'm guiding you through now. We're going through this in a short way, but you can also do this in a much more detailed fashion. So you could actually make a list, might be a long list of all the bad things. And but right now, obviously, I'm not asking you to make a list of all the things, but just bring to mind some of the things. And to start with, because I think it will be easier, bring to mind something that seems mildly bad. Okay, not the worst of the worst, just mildly bad. And ask yourself, if it was true that everything in your life is for your greatest good, that everything that has ever happened in your life, anything that will ever happen in your life, all things forever and ever through all time and space in your life are for your greatest good. If that was true, then how could you see this thing differently? And I'll give you some tips. Sometimes it's useful to increase the scope, either in time or in space. Because sometimes if we're focused very narrowly in time and or space. And so from that very narrow focus, maybe it seems really, really awful and there's no other way to see it. But what if you were to expand that? What if you were to increase the scope in time, for example? Could you see how maybe there were things for you to learn that you got to learn through this experience over time that have actually turned out to be for your greatest good? Now, the reason I asked you to start with something that seemed like mildly bad is because usually this is going to be easier to be able to recognize this with. Now, if you've already been able to identify something about that you can see has been actually for your greatest good, then you could move on to another thing that you've identified that you thought was bad. Again, just mild to moderate. And you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to ask yourself, if it was true that everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good, then how might I see this differently? How has this shaped me? What gifts has this given me? Gifts of being able to understand things, maybe gifts of awareness, maybe gifts of compassion, maybe gifts of learning forgiveness. Whatever it is, just notice how could you understand this if it was true that everything in your life is for your greatest good? And if you've been able to do that successfully, to reframe that, then you could select another item that you consider bad. Again, just mild to moderate. And ask the same question. If it was true that everything that happens in my life is for my greatest good, then how might I be able to see this? And also, again, notice if you increase the scope, does that help? When you do this exercise, you can understand your whole life in a different way. And this can free you of so much burden that you might not even have been consciously holding, but you were unconsciously holding. All of these things that you were holding on to about how life is bad, how I'm not safe, bad things happen to me, whatever else, whatever other beliefs and ideas have attached themselves that have been playing out over and over and over in your life, all of these same familiar patterns that just keep on playing out. And you can free yourself of them because you see, all along, there was something of value there for you, something that actually helps you to be and do and have more of what's important to you, what's really important to you, whatever that is, whether that's love, kindness, generosity, compassion, peace, or anything else. It's been hiding here in the last place that you thought to look. So I recommend that at least as long as you feel reasonably comfortable doing so, that you continue with this on your own time and at your own pace to recontextualize, to reframe all of these things from the past that you've been holding on to and casting in this negative light, to reframe them instead as, what is the value in this? What has this offered me that is fundamentally good, that fundamentally improves my life, that fundamentally improves life in general, that aligns with what's important to me? This is not to say that sometimes we might have experiences that are confusing, challenging, difficult. So we're not trying to whitewash anything. It's not about that, but it's just about recontextualizing it. Because you notice the simple and obvious fact is that by virtue of the fact that you're here now, you survived all of those things, every single one of them. But there's been a part of your mind that hasn't been so sure, has still been stuck, holding you back because it's afraid to let go. And this is a gift that you can offer yourself so that you can realize it's safe for me to let go. Life is fundamentally good. Even if these things happened. Now, I know, as I've said several times, this is challenging. This is not something that most people are going to quickly adapt to. It requires that you are willing to sincerely work with it and work with it in a way that is as kind, patient, gentle, and loving to yourself as possible. Just keep in mind that the aim here is for you to recognize your fundamental freedom. That is possible. It's possible for every one of you. You just need to be willing to persist in a firm yet gentle and loving way. So that is the main essence of today's talk. I have a few things that I'd like to share in closing before we move on to the group coaching for those who are here live. So for those who will watch this on YouTube, I want to mention that if you have not yet done so, then I encourage you to visit my website, joeylott.com, and there you can sign up to get the free ebook that covers 5 of the fundamental laws of creation. It is a valuable read that will help to simplify things for you so that you can understand what are the laws that govern how things work here, and you can begin to work with those laws to have more success in all areas of your life. So again, that's at joeylott.com. I'll provide the link in the description below. I also want to mention to everybody that next Thursday, the 17th of this month, which is July, I'm going to be hosting a presentation on how to find or discover or know your true purpose and manifest that in your life. So everybody who's already on my mailing list, you will get invitations to join that. And for those who are not yet on the list, then you can get on the list by going to my website and getting the free ebook. So I encourage you to do that. I think that's it for today. So I'm going to end this recording. Blessings to all of you and take care.